sign-up sheet that was at the door
Or the hallway.
or the hallway,
Oh, this is.
please do so. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the St. Albans Town Development Review Board for Thursday, June 27th to order. We have two applications on our agenda tonight. We're going to deal with number one first, and that's the application of Northwestern Counseling Support Services, represented by SOAR Learning Center, requesting site plan approval for a 75 by 43 basketball court in accordance with section 454684 of the St. Albans Town bylaws. Property is located at 178 McGinn Drive in a residential and mixed residential district and owned by the applicant. We have an applicant. I'm going to ask this question. If there's anybody out there that's here specifically to hear this application, please raise your hand. Okay.
I'm just picking.
So you're telling me you don't live anywhere near this project?
No, I like basketball.
Oh, okay. Nobody else? All right. Mike, would you swear in the applicant?
So do you hereby swear that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, please explain what it is you want to do.
Well, we had a smaller basketball court behind the school, and that was ruined by a series of frost heaves, and we had a contractor drive over that. It's virtually destroyed. So we thought we would take the opportunity to expand the court a little bit, move it a little bit away from the door. It causes some danger close to that. We've had the door affected by, there are magnetic locks that had the door affected by it being so close to their kids hitting the door with the basketball. So we thought we'd take the opportunity to just refurbish the court, improve it, and so we could use it for an expanded amount of kids. And we found that using that basketball court for a variety of reasons throughout the day, especially our population, really helps improve their focus and it can de-escalate their behavior.
And are you building this? Are you improving where the court is at present? You're going to do that court over, or are you moving the court?
Our facilities department asked me to come tonight, and I know they sent you some specs, but I do have a photo if you'd like me to give that to you guys. It looks like they've moved the court over behind our high school. It was behind our elementary school, and they've shifted it over behind the high school.
So it's not on the parking lot end of the McGinn
Oh,
Drive?
no,
It's out
not at all, behind the school.
Out behind the school, okay. Anything else you'd like to add? This is going to be crushed stone pavement.
It looks like it's going to be a 43 foot by 75 foot paved area, 12 inches of crushed stone. It's going over a geotextile fabric base. It looks like 2.5 inches of base course and 1.5 inch of top course, and repair and seed the affected areas if necessary.
And no intention of fence or anything like that?
No, sir.
Lighting?
No lighting.
Other questions from the board?
No.
Hearing none? I think you're done.
Thank you, sir.
Ladies will have an answer for you in the near future.
Thank you very much.
Application number 2. Let's hope it goes as fast as the first one.
Here.
This is the application of Stefan and Christina Pollock, represented by S.D. Ireland, requesting site plan approval for a proposed quarry in accordance with section 434484-10-7 of the St. Albans Town bylaws. Property is located at 1720 around Kellogg Road in the Conservation and Rural District and owned by the applicant. And we have some applicants. You are?
Byron Furman.
Did you get that?
I can't hear.
Byron Furman.
Byron Furman,
Patrick O'Brien on behalf of SD Ireland.
Patrick O'Brien,
And Nick Smith.
and Nick Smith.
That's Daryl.
I'm looking at this wonderful crowd. You know, I was sitting on the board when we did Walmart. Didn't hold a candle to this, though. So, we need to establish who's in this room as an interested party in this application. And to do that, I'm going to refer to a map. Yes?
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Being for it or against it?
I can find
You just
my-
hang tight, he's gonna tell you in just a second, he's just preparing.
Not on that one. Who prepared these maps, by the way?
I did.
Normally, when we see one of those site plans, the name of the abutting landowner is actually on.
It is on this one.
On which one?
It's,
Do we
There's
have
a
it?
list here somewhere, I'm just trying to find it.
Do we have a copy of the one?
C1.
yeah, C1, it's on there, yeah. You're looking for this at the top right corner here, this is on C1.
I am, but I really can't. I'm gonna look at it here on my own here, but orient myself.
It's on the top corner, Brent, on the right-hand side.
Okay, I see it. There we go. Okay. Mark and Amanda St. Pierre, are we? We are not here. All right. Lisa Morgan. Okay. You are eligible for interested party status. Kevin Welch. Okay. And your partner is here also? Yeah? Jeffrey and Tammy boys, no? No? Of course not. I didn't think that was the case. Diane Montang, I saw somewhere there. And Bittersweet Farm, who's representing them? Over there. And Glenn Peon, gotta be somewhere around here, yeah, right there. All right, what about the rest of you? I got a petition here with 85 names on here.
I got more.
You have more.
Yeah.
Well, if you can get them to me in the next 2 or 3 minutes, we'll look at them. Otherwise, we're not gonna.
Who has the petition?
Yes, a minute.
so I got a few more names. Now, if you are on this partition and do not live on the Kellogg Road or Jewett Avenue, then you will not be granted interested party status in this area. You're too far out of the neighborhood.
I live on. We're on front.
Excuse me. Our rules say. Yes, sir.
Sir, we live on the back side of this property. It's gonna affect us just as much as it is Kellogg Road.
Exactly.
Literally right
Absolutely.
beside.
You're on Brigham Road.
Yeah, we're the same.
All right, well, let's forget about that for a few minutes. If all you people intend to speak here tonight, and I don't know how many of you do, and we give you 3-4 minutes apiece, we're gonna be here a long time. So, I need you people to, for instance, if you sign this petition, certainly you ought to be organized enough to pick 2 or 3 spokesmen that could speak on behalf of these people. Is that a possibility or not? Well,
Why don't want the party sitting up in front of you, Brett, speak and tell
Yeah,
us
why
what
don't
they
you
want.
ask them some questions
we're
first?
getting to that.
Okay,
There-
thank you, sir.
There's an order that this goes in. In order for this hearing to go on, we have to determine who gets interested party status in this hearing. And that's what we're trying to do right now. So, again, I'm going to grant interested party status to everybody on this list. And since there's only 2 or 3 on Brigham Road, I guess I'm good with that. I'll let it go. Jewett Avenue, there's 2 little side developments on Kellogg Road. I'm not sure the names of them.
Pike Drive, Piedmont.
Not Pike Drive. Kellogg Road interest only goes as far as Jewett. Beyond that, it does not.
Christina Drive. I live on the.
Christina Drive. And what's the other little one on this end?
Piedmont.
Piedmont.
So can we just identify who's in the neighborhood first? versus-
All right, well, we've already done the abutters.
Doesn't Kellogg Extension go all the way down through past Jewett?
It does.
It does, so I'm on Pike.
Ireland has, and you'll hear this in the testimony, they're traveling on Kellogg Road's ends in Jewett. They're turning up Jewett.
And Pike is right behind Jewett.
I'm aware where Pike is.
Or they're going up Lake Road.
Or they're going up Lake Road.
Like the farmers, right?
You got a lot of interested parties here tonight who may not live on one of those streets because these large trucks, fully loaded, are going to be affecting people other than just the people who live on that road.
In the black.
And the blasting and the rest of the,
So people on Lower Newton that go by the railroads? That's right. That should be a section.
And the town is aware of it.
At least between Brigham and Kellogg on Lake.
got a lot
Take
of
into consideration, we got
interested
farms.
parties.
All right, enough. Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to hear from Ireland. And we'll get back to this after they've given their presentation. How about that? Everybody agree with that? All right. Normally, we have the interested parties scoped out and we swear y'all into once, but I
Can we
think
do it in like, can I just do it in a quick section? Just get a feel for who's who?
you may.
Okay. Real quick, who here is on Kellogg Road?
Who here on the property?
Who here is not on Kellogg Road but signed the petition? Who here is neither? We didn't, I didn't. I haven't had it.
So a lot of people were not aware of a petition is what they're trying to say. There's a lot of people here tonight whose names are not on there.
So you can still work on the application, it just means that you're not granted interested party status, which is something that is a legal term. And it does not mean that you won't get to have your voice heard, it just means you won't receive a copy of the decision in the mail, and that you won't be able to appeal the decision. If you are on the petition to be an interested party, you need to have one representative speak on your behalf, and that is just to try and make sure that everybody is not speaking at once, that we're not hearing the same testimony over and over again. So anybody who's on the petition, do you guys have a designated spokesperson, and could you get one together rather quickly if not?
Can I speak on behalf of the folks on Riverwood?
That's gonna be up to anyone on the petition.
We're not on it.
We're just trying to identify who has legal status here as an interested party. And that doesn't mean that everybody won't be heard, it just means it's a legal status.
Were there instructions that signing this petition would make it legal status? Because if that's the case, I don't think what.
A petition, so that's something that goes to the state, it's a law, it's not something that the town circulates, it was circulated by other
They know about
agencies.
this, and you knew, they probably didn't know.
No, that's not what I'm saying that it's something that a landowner was circulating, and you could sign the petition.
Could we get it around there?
Yeah, right there.
There's somebody here who has a petition, I'm not allowed to circulate on your behalf. I'm going to.
Yeah.
Pass it back.
But that's not necessarily going to grant an interested party
Is this piece of paper going to serve as legal? But you have to be a registered voter or you have to be a landowner. Well, this piece of paper, you can do that, that's fine. It's not like an official, I just need to know, I don't want to pass around. I need to have, if you are a landowner or if you are a registered voter, you need to check which one.
Are we going to address the parameters of what, an interested party is? May not have land in your name around there, but you're doing considerations.
Absolutely, but it's a
I mean,
legal.
one of the biggest things I think people are not seeing are like decibel levels where people are.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to that. This is literally just a legal status report in the state of Vermont that gives people the ability to appeal a decision and receive a, so that doesn't mean other people won't have to interpret it as just an interested party status, a legal status. That you're only allowed to get if you're within these three parameters. So that's an abutting landowner, someone who lives otherwise you have to but they have to be
Keep in mind that all of this information will be public record and obtained right here at the town hall at any point.
Nobody is going to be denied anything by not having interested party status. It is just a legal standing. Everyone will still be able to have their voice heard.
But will you only be able to appeal, you're saying?
If you're an interested party, correct, yes. And you have to have requested it at this meeting.
Okay, Mike, would you swear in the applicants, please?
Do you hereby swear that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you.
That should also be an interested party.
What's that?
Are you swearing an interested
No,
party?
we'll do that. You're the spokesman for this group? Why don't you?
I'll start. Again, my name is Patrick O'Brien. And with me tonight is my coworker Byron Furman, who is our Director of Safety and is also manages our aggregate quarry in South Burlington. And to my left is our civil engineer, Nick Smith, who put together the application and is going to do the presentation. And Mr. Chairman, what I would ask is for a little direction, because I know some municipalities and boards like to do it a little differently, but I think what Nick's favor would be to go through, to give a brief presentation of the project, and then go through the staff notes, maybe bullet by bullet, and address each staff note. And I guess the question, our question would be, is if you want him to take questions by the board as they come up, or If you would like to wait to the end, and a hybrid approach is totally fine as well. In the interest of time, we're just looking for a little direction as to who you would like us to present this.
What do you prefer?
I think what I would prefer is I'll give the presentation. We'll hold questions until we get to the staff comments. And at that point, if there's clarification or additional information you want beyond the staff comments that I try to address, jump in. As far as the board, and then the public, obviously, we can hear separately.
And so, you've all heard that they're going to present their application. Then it's going to be up to the board to ask for clarifications, ask questions. And when that part of the hearing is complete, then we'll get to the two people for participation. Okay, we're ready to start.
Great, and I'll try to speak up, and I'm going to just face everyone as best I can. Again, Nick Smith here, the civil engineer, prepared the application. This is, as you're well aware of, our proposal for a quarry on Kellogg Road, which is a Class 2 town highway. This is approximately 0.8 miles south of Lower Newton Road and 1.7 miles north of Lake Street. And if you are measuring distances from the edge of our property to the Brigham Hill Road, that would be about half a mile. So, I'll just go over a few of the items about the property, our dimensions, areas. We've got about, it's just under 16 acres of parcel, 15.9 acres. The shape is irregular, as you'll see. The frontage that we have is about 488 feet, and it's approximately 980 feet in depth within regular shape. The front parcel line, I'll try to highlight it here, is along Kellogg Road here, and then it comes back and it abuts the, it actually runs along the face of the ledge that is on this parcel. And then we've got a stone wall that follows in the back here, and then there's a kind of this little jog here, as you can see. So I know it's not clear for everybody, but it's the best I can explain. It is a regular shape.
We know what it looks like. We lived there for hundreds of years.
Please refrain from that kind of comment. We don't need to hear that.
Okay. It's going to be a little quicker if I don't get interrupted.
Yeah, certainly would be.
So we're zoned mixed use, which is a rural conservation combination. So the rural portion of the zoning is along the frontage of the lot. So the front half conservation generally is the second back half of the lot there to the east. And then, I'll just go in a quick description here. Like, this is an undeveloped site. There is a small trailer that's located on the site currently. It's not in use. It's in disrepair. It's located, past this front setback, approximately 60 feet off of Kellogg Road. This proposal would eliminate that trailer. There's an existing access drive that is aligned with kind of the farm access road along Kellogg Road. And this drive is just a couple hundred feet long and just switchbacks up into the parcel to provide access. The ledge face is approximately 150 to 200 feet from the Kellogg Road right-of-way. And then essentially the parcel is kind of has a topography that has a steep incline along the front where the ledge face is. On the northern portion of the lot, it's a little bit more gentle, which is why that road comes up in the manner that it does. And then the parcel has a ridge line, essentially the high point along the center, running north to south, south to north, and which splits the drainage. So everything on the east half drains to the northeast, everything on the west half drains towards Kellogg Road, essentially. The rear portion of the lot has a small area of sand deposit, but generally outside of that, the entire lot is ledge surface with just a small duff layer. I mean, if you walk out there, you'd be hard pressed to find more than 6 inches of topsoil across the site. So it's just pure ledge up there. And then, yeah, the back, there's the bowl that is, it's the sand is sitting on ledge, so there actually are some test pits that have been done on this lot to see if there was any development potential for residential use, and it really, it found that there was some sand in the back, but because of how this drainage is and the bowl that it's in, there's actually high groundwater in that location, so not really suitable for a great on-site septic system. I'll go through a little bit of just the environmental items here. The parcel's obviously undeveloped, forested generally, with exception of the access drive and some spotty areas. This parcel is a mid-sized map habitat block. It's designated as an interior forest block, which means that it's good tree canopy, and it is not a connectivity block, which means that it's not a corridor block for animals. It is a habitat block, which generally just means they've identified as a possible location where there could be more animals than in areas that don't have good tree canopy cover. And then it's a high priority geologic block, which is evident by the ledge everywhere. So these blocks were identified about 5 years ago by the state, and I would just say that really the blocks just signify areas of potential habitat. They are extremely common in Vermont. Vermont is, well over 75% habitat block, and there were much higher rates than the rest of New England. So, as far as that's concerned. Fitzgerald Environmental Associates prepared an assessment report for us last year, in which they walked the site, they reviewed any of the plant species on site for rare, threatened, endangered. They looked for vernal pools, they looked for significant natural communities, and they looked for wetlands, all kind of indicators of what kind of habitat this is. On the site, there were no RT, rare, threatened, endangered species, and there were no wetlands identified. The limited scope doesn't have them, they didn't comment on the vernal pools, but there weren't any identified during that time of year. But obviously they come and go, so it's one of those things that they may have not commented on, but there was nothing identified at that time. So, and they said no wetlands on the site. So that essentially is the parcel itself. Now I'll go into our proposal here, and I'm going to switch over to the next slide. What you'll see here is, and I'll try to just quickly identify, the lower portion here is generally what we are proposing as the quarry blasting limits, and it would be also the quarry crushing operation will be limited to that footprint. So meaning that the crusher and sump and generator and any heavy equipment is generally located within that blasted area. It doesn't get out above grade, and that's a requirement by like MSHA as far as how mines are operated, mines and quarries. So at the top, you'll see we're proposing a sediment basin. This is just to treat stormwater runoff and any discharge that we pump out of the quarry. And then we're also proposing a stockpile here for all of the existing topsoil that we're estimating on site that we're going to use to reclaim the site upon completion. So for those of you that don't know, quarries, obviously when they reach their lifespan, typically the state requires that topsoil be replaced, the site be filled if it's below groundwater or below grade, and then we establish cover if it's not below water level at that point. So, which would mean plantings, reseeding, tree placement, something along those lines afterwards. As far as the quarry operation blasting area that I identified, that's approximately 7.8 acres of area. And then we've got about 4.7 acres, which kind of include the access road, the staging area, the reclamation pile, and things that are assisting the operation. I'll make a quick clarification now. The blasting depth is 108 feet elevation, which is about 10 feet above the road grade, and there's a little bit of, it just wasn't clear necessarily in the staff notes. There's no 140, we're not going to 140. 140 is the depth from the highest point to the 180 mark. So that 140 is the maximum blast depth, essentially. And as you'll see, the blasting operation is essentially going to produce this bowl area, which is going to have kind of an effect that will limit sounds, dusts, other air pollution to a specific area, minimizing the impacts that we'll see from adjacent landowners, because it'll all be remaining in this bowl, which will be below essentially surface grade. As far as hours are concerned and noise, I just want to make clarification. After submission, we realized that there was just a little, it was unclear as far as what we were proposing. So I just want to run through that, and we will certainly provide a statement that confirms all this in the future. But we're requesting that this quarry operate from Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then the potential to run on Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. And right now, we'd like to throw out that really what we're foreseeing as far as a Saturday operation becomes like an emergency operation system for us, meaning the board could set a limit on us to what we would propose as 6 days a year that we could operate on Saturdays. And that would be essentially just to crush and not to blast, just to crush and to haul out on Saturdays for at a maximum of 6 days annually on Saturday. And that would be a half day on Saturday from 7 to 12.
And the reason for that is, unfortunately, we have breakdowns. So if we have a situation where our crusher were to go down, or some of the equipment in the quarry goes down for a day or two, and we lose production and we need to pick that up, that's what those days would be used for.
Okay. As far as noise, we did say that we want to have a 1 hour average of 60 decibels at the site, at the property boundaries, which I think is definitely something we can manage. Byron, when we get into that a little, we can kind of describe what that means as far as, number one, safety, and number two, what that actually sounds like. 60 decibels, like a lot of, the average show doesn't know what 60 decibels is, so neither do I, so it's...
I'm speaking at more than that right now.
Yeah.
So, just to throw it out there, Nick, and you can show the blast report that we brought with us in a little bit here, but a typical blast, which will show you the pattern that's in that blast report, and it shows the charges and everything that are in there, at 200 feet away is roughly 110 decibels. So 100... Now it's going to be too loud, probably. So a typical blast in the pattern that we're going to show from a blast report here is about 110 decibels from 200 feet away. So 60 decibels, as we were just discussing, is about, it's actually not even as loud as this now that I'm on mic. It's normal conversation between people. If you're sitting outside in your backyard listening to the peepers, you're listening to about 20 decibels. So hopefully that puts it into perspective a little bit. So a 747 taking off from the airport is 120, which is higher than a blast impact at 200 feet.
86 decibels is bad for hearing.
85 and up can have damaging effects on hearing, that's correct. But blasting in this quarry, I don't see where there would be any impact because I don't really think anybody's going to be in there within 200 feet. Even our own people are beyond the limits of the quarry when we do blasts, and the only people allowed in there are the actual blasting company.
And I would point out that 110 blast is an instantaneous peak, so that's a 1 second blast. So as quick as it goes off, that's the decibel level, obviously. Everyone understands that. But also, that is at surface level blast. We're talking about 200 feet. So when we start shooting at a depth that's below grade, that decibel does not travel to that 200 feet is not the same 200 feet because we're now traveling out of the hole at a different direction. It's not a clear line of sound wave to someone's ear from the blast. So essentially what we're saying is if you're on the site, it could be as loud as 110 decibels if you were standing in the wrong spot on the site. Anyone else, at the property line, we're not anticipating a blast being above 80 decibels, essentially.
Not the wind. I'd like to add, nobody's going to be standing in the wrong site, on the wrong spot on the site. It's not the way we operate. But the other important note is, at a maximum, this blast that may last a second or two happens at the most maybe once every 3 weeks to once a month. This isn't a continual. It's we blast once a month and then we come back a month later. It's not continual at all.
Yeah, typically the continual noise operation that we're interested in here is the crushing operation, obviously. And the crushing operation, it must be located within the footprint of the blasting area, so it's going to be below grade as well. And it cannot be above 60 decibels at the property lines. Okay, so hopefully that provides at least a little bit of clarity.
How do we measure?
With a dosimeter. So a dosimeter is basically a noise meter, and I have 2 portable dosimeters that Bluetooth back to my tablet and phone. So when we blast, those are set in place, and then it's downloaded, so I have all of that data.
And then, talk about our pre-blast protocols, post-blast protocols.
Sure. So Nick, could you pull that up? Do we have that in there?
Yeah.
So basically there's 3 different anticipated pieces to a blast. So the first part is designing it. Whoever is the rock blasting superintendent, and we use a third party to do that. We don't blast ourselves. It would be either Main Drilling and Blasting or Austin Powder or Capital Rock. The professionals, the guys that really know what they're doing here. They come in and they evaluate possible fissures, the way that the rock needs to be blasted, so you're not blasting against the grain, basically. And then the safety specialist for them comes in and does an evaluation, determines where their blasting materials need to be located, where the holes need to be drilled, and what size the blast needs to be. So depending upon existing conditions, if you have a high wall in front of you and half of that wants to shoot in a certain direction, we may or may not take that until another area has been blasted so it can more safely be pushed in a different direction because of the way that it's drilled. So basically a half hour before a blast is going to happen, well, I'm going to back up a little bit. So any adjoining neighbors, businesses, homeowners that, people of interest, I guess is the way that we'll put that, they will be notified a minimum of 24 hours before a blast happens. And that can be adjusted by the board as well. We can change that to a longer period of time if need be. But a half an hour before the blast takes place, the quarry is completely shut down. There are no vehicles allowed in or out at that point. All staff within the quarry goes all the way to the gate, and the only people inside the quarry are the blasters themselves. Would you like to go to the next one? Okay, the horns, they're right there. So this is something that possibly the people that live around this will hear, and it's a good thing that they can hear it, okay? When a horn is sounded 3 times, that means it's 5 minutes before the blast goes off. After that 5 minutes, if there isn't all clear, they blow the horn twice, and it's 1 minute until the blast goes off. Once that blast is initiated, the blaster goes and checks all the blast caps, all the connections, make sure that everything has detonated, and then they blast a single horn blast that says it's all clear.
What's
And
the
that,
decibel level of the horn?
loud enough to be able to hear it. I don't 100% know that answer, but I could find it. And that is the all clear. The gate is reopened. The employees can come back into the quarry at that point.
That's a standard air horn, is it not?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
In our quarry in South Burlington, we have maybe 30 or 35, maybe more people. We have a business park on one side, we have a residential neighborhood near us, and then we have some more rural homeowners, and they're all notified with standard operating procedure that we notify them before each blast.
Yeah, it wouldn't necessarily just be abutting landowners, it would be anyone within the threshold that's set either by MSHA or by any other permits that we might obtain, Act 250 or anything along those lines, or the town. So it could be up to 1,000 feet away or more. Okay. And then I'll just finish up on the hours. I just want to clarify too, when we, in the application, we asked for an additional hour pre and post crushing operation, we'll call it. That would be just for vehicle maintenance, essentially, greasing vehicles, starting engines, getting them heated in the winter, things like that. Nothing beyond like essentially a truck idling, really, for the most part. Maybe moving equipment a little bit here and there, but not typically.
It's just really important for our minute taker that she can hear what's going on. I know you guys all have questions and comments, but it's difficult to hear here.
Okay, I'll move on to the air and dust control briefly. So with any quarry operation that is utilizing a crusher and generator or a wash station or anything else, they are required to obtain an air control permit to operate. What that means is the state issues a permit to operate the machinery, essentially, that it knows is going to produce pollutants to the air. And that's for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's to reduce those pollutants within the air. So the way they do that is they have regulators on the equipment. It'll be like fins on the equipment. It might be filters on the equipment. It could be a lot of different items. And then number two, so essentially that is trying to reduce like carbon dioxides, nitric oxide, sulfur dioxides, VOCs, things like that. They're going to set a threshold that we need to be under. That is a standard threshold. And as time goes on, those we are regulated at a higher and higher tier threshold. So we got to be even more and more compliant, essentially.
Just to comment on that, all of our equipment in our existing quarry and that would be here are all tier 4. And if you're familiar with construction equipment, that is the best emission controlled equipment that you can buy.
That doesn't account for the trucks pulling out of there, though. Is that correct? And the dust coming out of the trucks.
That's correct. It doesn't include vehicle traffic. Truck vehicle, I should say. And then I'll keep moving on. So, and then also there's some requirements as far as wetting suppressants and things like that. So all of the conveyors, the jaws, anything else, they need to be wet. All the material gets wetted, all the dust gets wetted, so that it can trap that dust immediately and kind of keep it contained. If we come in, if there's like particularly dry season that we're in, or just generally we find that we're getting a little more dust than typical, we'll also set up stationary like tripod misters essentially near the crushing equipment, and we'll put those downwind so that we can capture as much as possible as far as that goes. So that's how we control air pollution and dust. I know traffic is another item that there's a lot of comments on. I'm sure the board will have comments on, and I'd like to just clarify again our application on this matter, because I think it came off the wrong way, and we have since also evaluated a better way to phrase it, essentially. So in the application we were requesting 120 round trips per day, but that was a maximum number of round trips per day. We have at South Brownell have only hit that threshold I bet you could count on one hand at
The
most.
only time that I'm aware of is during the governor's emergency order when we were doing the repairs from the flooding.
So that was an emergency, once in a lifetime event,
And that
essentially.
quarry is 5 minutes from Chittenden County, all the job sites there, whereas this one, there's no, I don't ever see us as hitting that.
Yeah. So we didn't take into account essentially the vehicle trip time on these. So that 120 is way higher than realistically we expect. I'm gonna get into that here. So what I think we wanted to come back with was, what we expect to see is somewhere closer to 60 average truck trips per day. So that would mean that like a lot of days we'll be running 20, 30, and then there might be a day where we run 80. I don't even foresee the possibility of us really ever getting over 80 now that we've reevaluated, just because of the round trip time that it takes. So we would be amenable to adjusting those numbers, discussing it with the board, and figuring out what the right number is for us and for the town. So
Round trips to Swan or South Burlington?
Is this gonna benefit Franklin County?
Where do you anticipate the bulk of this stone go?
South,
Chittenden County.
Williston plant in Chittenden County.
So when I get into
So we get nothing.
Could we keep the comments down so the man can finish his presentation, please?
Yeah, I'm going to get into that right now, actually. The reason that we're shipping the majority of this rock to our quarry, to our batch plant in Williston and around Chittenden County is because what this rock is, we've done initial testing on it. It's a dolostone rock, dolomitic marble, which means that essentially it's got like a really high, fairly high hardness level. It's got low amounts of deleterious in it. It meets all the abrasion requirements, which are very stringent for concrete. So essentially, we want to use this rock, generally for concrete, and supplementally for things like, aggregates below, roadway aggregates and things, because, the state also has a high requirement for hardness for aggregates.
So I think one thing that what you're getting to, Nick, is that our plant in Williston is a state certified plant. So any roadway work that we do needs to come out of that plant.
Yeah, and we need to test constantly the material that's coming in to make sure that it's meeting that, which is particularly why we looked at this site, because we knew that the geology is what we were looking for, essentially.
And don't get me wrong, Swanton will receive some of this product.
Yeah. So I guess what we would say is the majority of items will be going to our batch plant in Williston and assisting in projects in Chittenden County generally, but also there will be items when they come up and when we're working in Franklin County that we'll be sending it to, and there'll be times when we'll be sending it to Swanton batch plant. So I can't give you a percentage, I can't give you any numbers on that because it's just, that's how business works. It changes day by day and year by year as far as what projects are going on.
So how many trips to the weight room? You'll have a chance to ask those questions at the end of the meeting, please.
Yeah, and then the last thing I'll get into is, I know we provided the draft roadway agreement that we want to put together with the town. Essentially, this is us saying, we understand that these trucks do have an impact on local roads, and we want to be upfront about that, and we want to make sure that we're coming to an agreement with the town on, what we can do to put aside to help to support those roads, repair those roads after a certain period of time. So that's why we put that together, and also in that agreement, it highlights, the trip route that we want to take. The primary route that we want to take is going to be getting on I-89 essentially, or Route 7 as quick as possible. This means that we're proposing to essentially, unless there are local deliveries, we will be running north on Kellogg Road all the way to, it's Jewett, correct? East on Jewett, and down Route 7, 207 to 89. So, we're technically on two Class 2 town highways, which would be Jewett and Kellogg Road. And we factored in the length of both of those roads, what we anticipate for easels, which is essentially like our, it's essentially what the vehicle's impacts are on those roads over time, and what, you know, the daily trips do to that road and how we can repair it, and what we assume that the cost will be over the lifetime of this work. Okay? So I think with that said, I think that gives a lot of information. I know we'll probably hit some of the points that were in the staff comments, but I think I would love to jump into those unless there's comments that the board want to come up with right away here.
On that contract, under the terms agreement, it says it expires in April 28th. Is that?
I think it's just it's one that we have with another town that's the same, almost very similar format to one we're using in Williston with South Brownell Road and our quarry there, and I think it might have just been a carryover. And
so basically, what you're saying is you're expecting a life of 15 years, that contract will go 15.
Yes, yep, for the life of the quarry, whatever comes out of that quarry, the town will get a portion of a payment on that quarterly. And then, and I would just, sorry, I spaced out now because I heard something. Okay.
So you now want to go through these proposed findings that AJ listed, is that what you're attempting to?
If we want to look through that, or we can go through, I guess I'll leave it to the board to decide how we want to move from here. We're happy to continue to answer questions from the board and then the public when you see fit. I know you'll want to hit the findings, obviously, at some point.
Well, I mean, you know, I have certain clarifications that I might ask for out of some of that information.
Yeah, if I could point just to one thing though, on number 10 of the proposed findings, it's listed as 100 million cubic yards. We wish we could get 100 million cubic yards out of this, but we are actually asking for we anticipate it being 1 million.
And that 100 yard, I mean, is that the ceiling? Or if it works out?
What we're showing on our plan is about 1 million, excuse me.
That's in place.
In place, yep. So there's a swell factor when you blast, obviously you get more material actually than this compacted rock.
So in the development of this quarry, you're going to go in there and build this infrastructure. Roadway up to the top, pond, site for the strippings. And you've also got a pond at the bottom of it. Do I understand that pumps up to the top one?
Yeah, exactly. So the one up top is designed essentially to take in a lot of water at once and allow that sediment to settle. We also have to test out of that pond typically to make sure that we're under any thresholds as far as like sediment transport or anything else that the state might ask for. But the sump in the quarry could change location, so.
Absolutely. I mean, where it's shown on your print, it's halfway back or better, which obviously is what happened in the beginning.
Yeah.
And your crusher location also shown back there, obviously that's going to be up in the front initially.
Yeah, if I could actually, we've discussed this a little more, and as we get a little bit more familiar with the planning process, you know, some of these things are, I'm learning a little too. So what we've actually talked about is that we think that the phasing on this is going to be a little different than what's shown on the plan. We think that we're actually going to do the phase 1, which means all the infrastructure stuff that we talked about there, and then phase 2 starts actually in the corner down here, which is near the tailings pile, and it works its way towards the front of the site. But
show them on the
yeah, I'm gonna try and it's just really hard to do it else.
Well, so you would come, if you're going to start in the back like that, then you're going to come out of there in layers more or less.
Yeah,
to the
we
front.
can't do this all at one shot.
No,
Yeah.
we're generally looking at a shot of 50 to 55 feet each shot.
So the proposal would be to actually start somewhere in this corner, maybe, and then shooting up this way, and then as we're shooting it back towards our site, so that, you know, that's just extra safety on our end, and it allows us to create these void spaces where we can kind of shoot the rock into.
But again, it all depends on geology of the stone, the way that it's configured underground.
So initially though, you'll be taking stone out of that quarry on that road on the upper boundary then?
Exactly. That means that we can, it'll still be a higher layer. It'll be transported up to kind of where that parking area is, right? And then down the road and out, essentially. And as we get towards the front of the site, there'll be an opportunity to open up the access to get out a little bit easier without going up and kind of counteracting what nature, gravity.
Do you strip that site in its entirety right from the beginning?
Clear it and strip it up, and we'll mulch everything on site to use as erosion control. Typically, I mean, we may, well, some select trees may leave the site, but a lot of it gets mulched.
Now you're proposing a chain link fence on the road access, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to highlight it here the best I can. So, we want to do a chain link fence that kind of runs here, and there's a gate, and then it runs all the way around this pond out to the road over here somewhere. And we'll kind of refine that as far as what actually makes sense, like what's navigable by people or vehicle. It's just because of the ledge there, it's really a challenge to navigate that anyway, but we need to take as many precautions as we can. So, and then we're also proposing additional screening fence. So this would be like a vinyl or a picket fence that would be for privacy, for noise barrier, for just to give the neighbors that are the closest neighbors a little bit more reprieve from this. And then also doing a lot of extra landscaping throughout the project. Mostly for sound, noise, dust control, and things like that.
You have a 75-foot buffer all the way around? Is that
We have a 50-foot buffer,
50 foot?
correct, around everything, which is more than the setbacks. The setbacks in the zone are 25 and 30. Obviously that, this is a different operation than a house, so we get that. But on the side here, we've got, it's much closer to like where the actual quarry operation starts. Obviously, we have the roadway that's about 60 feet off of that property line that starts, but then it's another, 30, 40 feet till you get to the actual blasting limit. So it's closer to 100 feet off the property line to where we're blasting.
And if the board would condition you to increase that to 75 feet or 100, would that be a hardship?
I think what we would ask the board to consider is that it can be challenging as these sites get tighter and tighter to make them feasible, but that doesn't mean we wouldn't be willing to talk about that as far as on areas where we abut residential neighbors that are very close to us.
Well, that's the closest one.
Yes, I agree. So in that case, I mean, we would be open to considering some kind of adjustment to that buffer there. I think where we've got the back of the lot, that there's nobody within any close proximity, we would prefer to keep it at 50 feet if possible.
How close to the train tracks are you?
And then, and what I haven't shown on here is that there is a berm that has to be installed at the top of this as well. So from at existing grade, essentially, we're going to add a 4-foot berm before any blasting, roadway, pond. Oh, the pond has a berm slope.
That's a federal mine safety standard.
Yeah.
That's a requirement.
So that would run along the perimeter of that road?
It'll run, yeah, we'll keep it as tight to the road as we can, and then we'll also do whatever we can to plant on that, to do the fence on that, just because that gives us extra height of screening and noise barrier and things like that.
this pond down in the beginning,
Yes, sir.
since we're starting at the back corner of the quarry,
The reason for that pond there actually is for, I think,
is drain the road.
we're gonna end up, we have to drain kind of the drive there and to treat the drive. So we're actually gonna probably be installing some kind of a gravel wetland or something along the front there. It'll just depend on what the long-term impervious surface is on the site and what the state regulates us to do. So it's either gonna be a sump or it's gonna be a small treatment practice, so. It won't be where the majority of the water goes. The majority of the water goes to the sump areas, which is why it's kind of up in the air still, but some of that roadway will drain to that, basically.
This sump has an electric pump in it,
Yeah,
very high capacity.
Yes.
correct.
The ones we currently use will push about 220 feet ahead. They're pretty significant.
And I mean, does it happen in your experience, some of these massive rainstorms we get? No chance of them overwhelming that, or?
Well, if there's a massive rainstorm, we have the luxury of being able to keep some of it in the bottom of the quarry while we allow that to settle, pump it as we can into the pond, ensure that we're not exceeding our discharge rates for.
Yeah, because the
sediment.
state's going to mandate a certain discharge rate that we can do per day.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes we have extra that just stays in the
Yeah.
quarry until the next day or 2 days later or whatever, yeah.
That discharge rate is out of the final stage of that pond.
Yeah, correct. Out of the back sediment pond here.
It's not the intent that water infiltrates into that sandy area, because chances are that's gonna seal up really.
Yeah, I mean, there is a reason we put it there is because it is, it's non-blastable material for us, number one. And number two is there may be some opportunity to utilize that water to infiltrate, but you're right, it's probably gonna silt in at some point and be totally permeable, impermeable, excuse me.
Okay, so let's go back to the trucks. So these are tandem trucks, triaxles, trailers.
Tandem trucks, typically we can haul somewhere between 14 and 16 yards per truck.
What's the weight? Tractor trailer trucks?
The weight is the mandated weight by the state of Vermont, essentially, for vehicles.
Well,
Which is,
what does a 14 yards on one of these trucks? I mean, what is that? Must be 25, 26, 7, 800 to the yard.
yeah, I think it's up there, yeah.
Are they tractor trailer trucks? or
24,000
dump
pounds.
trucks?
Excuse me. Well, I'll have your chance.
Really?
So you're not anticipating any trailers going out?
We do have
Trailers,
a few trailers in our fleet, but they don't typically haul aggregate. I mean, they could potentially once in a while, but that's not standard operating procedure.
So tandem trucks, probably all got tags on, everyone.
correct. So I think the state regulation, and maybe I'm incorrect, but I think it's 56,000 pounds or something. So I'm saying, I know.
56,000
So,
total weight?
if I can speak, it's 56,000 total weight, with including the vehicle and everything. So, obviously, we understand it's a class 2 town highway as it is a different designated weight limit. That is why we are proposing a development agreement. If that with the town of roadway development agreement, if this was a V-Trans highway, we wouldn't have to have an agreement with the town. We would just be all set to transport. So
So, you've reduced your 120 trips a day, since they're not likely to happen, to 60.
As an average, yeah.
I mean, it's also a function of mitigation, right? We realized that we had to reduce the number because what we proposed was too much.
So, using that number is 60, and they're carrying 15 yards apiece, that'd be 950 yards a day out of that quarter. So you could essentially reach your 100 in 100, a little over 100 days.
But it'd be, how often do we run that many trucks out of the quarry?
I'd like to, really quickly before we get into that though, you're getting at 100, this is the difference between why we were asking for in-place material. We're asking for 100,000 yards of in-place material annually, which translates to about 2.2 or 220,000 roughly yards of material. Crushed material. So if you do that and double it, it almost works out perfectly with holidays and Saturdays off and Sundays off and running about 50 to 60 trucks a day or something.
So at 50 to 60 trucks a day and you're traveling an hour, a truck is going an hour probably, right?
A little better than that usually,
One way.
depending on where the job sites are.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
So Williston from
Hour
here,
and a half maybe, yeah.
it's about an hour roughly.
That's a lot of trucks.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even have that many
That's
camper
what I
trucks.
was-
So, you'd have to have multiple loads
Yeah.
per vehicle per day in order to even hit the 60. And honestly, I operate the quarry in South Brownell, and we very rarely hit that number there. So
And
it's
you're
gotta
not
be,
even
and we're
5 miles.
2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yep, from our yard. So it has to be a very, very, very busy day for us to be beyond that, even in our Williston location.
And do you plan on using a lot of other trucks as in,
We typically don't. The
are
only
you
time-
selling there too?
What's that?
Are you selling there to other
No.
people?
No,
It's just for...
just for our own use. Yep.
So if you're open 10 hours a day, if you've got the 60 trucks, there'd be, 6 loads going out of there an hour?
Roughly.
If they're lucky.
Yep.
And by the time you're loading and everything, that's probably pretty much a max that we could be at. So,
Well, just to throw this in there too, we're crushing rock, so those crushers are down a couple times a week on average, and that limits to 0 trucks, unless we have big stockpiles. So
Of course, at a crushing day, you probably wouldn't crush the whole 10 hours, but
no,
you'd probably crush 8 hours.
yeah.
How many yards, how many yards do you crush?
well, it depends on which crusher would be up here, but I can get you those calculations.
Well, offhand, you must have some idea. I mean, 20 truckloads worth, 30?
Probably 30 to 40 truckloads worth
30
of stone.
to
Yeah.
40 per day,
Yep.
most you could.
Obviously, in when we've got posted roads or winter, we're not hauling as often. We're stockpiling that crushing, which is why you can get over that number.
Do you crush all winter?
Yep.
Just about, yep.
Are those, do they mat those blocks?
What was that?
You mat those blocks?
In the beginning.
So, yeah, so when we first blast, because we're at, we'll call it grade up top, those have to be matted. There's not a blaster out there that's going to be comfortable blowing something upwards without blast mats in place. And then once you go down, you have that relief in whatever direction the grain of the stone is going, and they actually drill it to blast into the hole.
So on the blasting, how does that work with neighbors? Do you go in their house and check and take pictures or anything like that? How does that?
Yeah, there are pre-blast surveys that are done, which essentially, as long as the owner of the house allows it, we'll go in, we'll document everything. That way, if anything, if something were to happen to the foundation, or something else, whatever it is, really, we can go back between the photos and we can make sure that we're paying that owner for whatever damages are received. We haven't had to do that at Brownell, but that would be the same process
I don't
here.
think you have nothing at Brownell, really.
There's stuff.
A farm.
Nothing is as close as this, so yeah, that's.
Right.
I mean, for instance, on the north boundary, we put a seismograph on the.
There'll be seismic.
So every blast that's done, can you pull up that report for me, please, Nick?
Bear with me here.
Yep.
Bear with me.
So we've brought a typical blasting report with us from one of the blasts at our Brownell quarry, which is here. And it tells you pretty much everything that you need to know. Once you learn how to read these, it's not too bad at all. But they tell you how much powder they use, they tell you the yards that were extracted, they tell you what the levels were on the seismograph, they tell you the decibel level, like here, it's 110 decibels. You can see it's the third item over where it says seismograph. So it gives you the time, distance from the blast that the seismograph was set, and then what the levels are.
Is that the only blast area you have now is Williston?
South Brownell? Well, it depends on whether we want to consider job sites as well, because we do have some blasting going on.
But no quarries, no other
this
places?
This is the only one.
Yeah, the familiar, like Brian Byron was getting at, with blasting on job sites as well, which is the same, that generally is a similar process.
And do one of these shots, what is the size of the largest chunk that comes out of it?
So it depends on your hole pattern. And if you want to scroll up a little bit, they actually show a hole pattern on here.
Down here.
Or down, I meant.
So I guess what I'm,
Yeah, it's on there, but.
I guess what I'm getting at is some of these boulders, I don't call them a boulder,
Yep.
would need to be broken down with a,
No.
Not generally. So that only happens if somehow some portion of the rock that's been blasted didn't fracture, and generally that doesn't happen. So pretty much everything in a blast we can feed right from the blast into the crusher.
And we do utilize boulders that are oversized in part on the quarry.
For berms.
For berms, other things like that. And if there's, what we would propose is if we had to break them down, a lot of times they'll set the drills up and they'll actually just drill them and crack them that way, and then they can go in the crusher. So rather than hammering.
A lot of them can actually be broken with the excavator itself. Just you pick it up and drop it on the other rocks and it fractures.
other questions from the board?
So you talked about, I guess I'm just going to ask this question. So we keep saying that we're going to go into like 60 trucks per day. That's your high goal. But in the winter, you won't be doing nowhere near that.
No.
Correct.
And your high time of concrete is in the summer only.
Well, it's the highest time.
We run year round.
We run year round.
You run year round.
This time of year, absolutely, yes.
Yes.
And will there be any lighting or anything on the site? Because we didn't receive any information on that.
So all of the crushers themselves all have lights that come on as soon as they're turned on. We have light trees that we use as well. Our job trailers that are there for the site supervisor and for the employees has a solar panel, powered lights as well. So there's plenty of lighting. The roadway will have, depending, I'm not sure what this roadway is going to look like, but it should have some light trees or lighting along it. But really, a lot of our operations almost all of our operations take place in the daylight.
Yeah, I think at the moment, we're not showing anything. However, we may come back with a lighting plan for the board here. If we think that we need lighting at the entrance, it will not be right at the entrance. It'll be at the entrance gate or something, so it'll be 100 feet off the road or whatever. So it'll obviously be downcast. It'll be minimal pole height if we need something like that. The light trees that Byron's talking about inside the quarry obviously are well below grade. They'll be directed downward, things like that. And the same can be said about the crusher. And the job trailer is really very small lights. I mean, we can try to figure out what they would be, but they're going to be like a residential type light on them generally.
So down at the road, Kellogg Road, you're not going to have nobody to stop traffic or nothing like that. You're going to have it all cleared out so the truck can see both ways and cars can see all which ways.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we do have on the plan listed the site distance that we know will be required. We can meet that site distance. There'll be a little bit of additional clearing for us, just and it's really just like, you know, overgrown shrubs and things like that that are kind of coming into the roadway. So we'll do the clearing to make sure we have good site distance. You know, if we, for whatever reason, are dropping off large equipment and we needed to swing in, you know, we may have call somebody up from the site just to come out and flag that really quickly, but we don't anticipate that being often, you know, at most once a day or something like that. I mean, it won't be that much. It'll be
just dropping off a piece of equipment.
Dropping off a large piece of equipment, yeah. And we have, we've done turning templates on the road so that the trucks will be able to maneuver in pretty easily without.
And most trucks are going to Jewett, not going up Lake Street.
Correct. Nearly all of them will be.
The trailers too.
Trailers especially, yeah. There's no way we would, well, I don't think there'd be any reason to try that.
No, there's no reason to go that way.
Yeah.
Can there be potentially a sign that says to go that way only?
Absolutely. So, well, we have now where.
Well, we only want to go one way. We don't want to go every way.
We're already proposing it as part of our agreement, and this is a good point that is brought up because this is a great point because what we're actually trying to do is minimize the impact on the roadway by using one route. So that means that we can be very efficient with what we're proposing to give the town.
We have the same restriction on South Brownell and Williston. We can only run in one direction.
Yeah.
And that's all posted.
You said that you would notify people in the neighborhood within 24 hours of the blast. You know, what are we talking? Quarter mile out? You obviously aren't going to notify.
Yeah, we're not notifying everybody. I mean, I don't know what the requirement is. We will have that in our final blasting plan that we'll submit to Act 250 certainly, and with that, I would imagine that it's you know, it's at least 500 feet of any of our site will be notified within 24 hours. I don't know if it's beyond that, but I can pretty much guarantee it's within 500 feet.
And if you want to put a condition that it's 1,000 or 1,500, that's fine too.
Yes, the Ireland News Facebook?
We do.
On there, we certainly.
I mean, essentially, the call is like an automated call. So we do a recording, and then they add the time and date, and then they send out that, and they just.
And then we'll duplicate that with an email as well. So phone call and an email.
mic.
Crushing operation, does it produce a lot of flour?
Stone dust essentially is what you're saying? Yeah, we do get a lot of stone dust, and we try to use that where we can. Sure pack, mixing it in. We would like to wash it and use it in our concrete aggregate. We're not proposing a washer on this site, we just don't have the space for it. But that's something we're looking at the potential to do.
And that's used for road base, parking lot base, along with 1.5 inch stone, 3.5 inch stone, depending on what the spec requires.
Yeah, we can remix it if we need additional fines in something, yeah.
Using it for, get rid of it so it's not impacted.
As best we can, exactly, yeah.
Other questions from the board? There in your reclamation of the site, typically you would bring that overburden pile down into the bottom, spread it out, seed it. You mentioned in there about refilling it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, that would add an additional lifespan and trucks traveling on the highways.
So, just first off, obviously, this approval would only approve us to reclaim it as shown in place 4 inches of topsoil. We would like the ability, we're just putting that out there now because we want to be upfront that we will explore that option, and at that point, the town can make the decision on whether they want to see that or not. There's also the potential for a solar array or something along those lines, and it would just depend. But yeah, what we are finding in the state is that as far as fill sites, they're becoming a little bit more challenging to find. It's nice to use these sites that have been essentially repurposed to do that. And you're right, there'll be more trucks. We will develop a second agreement that talks about what it would cost us to bring fill in. And we would have to kind of go from there when that boat sails.
Other questions from the board? All right then. Nobody's got anything else to add? So we will now take public comment, and we're going to start with the abutting landowners. Okay? So, well, you're one, so we're going to have a blanket swear in here for everybody in the room. So go for it, Mike.
Do you all hereby swear that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
All right, so I'd like to give you all 3-4 minutes to speak.
Okay, I got a first thing.
Well, I'm not quite done yet.
Okay.
We'd love to hear from all of you, but if everyone gets up and says exactly the same thing, that's probably gonna catch on after just a few. Yes, sir.
In the event a question is asked, we'll look to you if you want us to answer it.
Yep. Okay. All right, Glenn.
Yes. What are they applying for actually for the conditional use? I haven't heard that. And is it a commercial business?
They're applying for, I believe it's called earth removal.
Mining and extraction of earth resources.
Okay. And are they doing it as a commercial business?
Industrial?
Industrial? What is it?
Well, I would guess it's industrial, is it not? It's for their own use, so it's not a commercial business.
Well, yeah, they're going to sell it.
They're a company.
But they're not selling this stone
Oh my
here.
God.
They're selling the product after it, though.
Yes.
Still,
Because they're not doing it here.
I agree.
all right.
CEP has been notified what's going on here.
We're gonna do one at a time, it's gonna get
Well,
crazy.
I don't care about knowing how concrete's made.
Speakers over here right
I don't
now.
believe anybody asked.
Yeah.
AJ, Is this a conditional use?
It is not considered a conditional use
Why?
because it's reviewed under section 10.7 of our bylaws.
So you consider it a home occupation?
No, not at all. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it's a
So
little
what do
bit.
you, I don't understand
Would you
it.
like to answer your question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so there's conditional uses and then there's permitted uses. If you guys ever looked in the bylaws under each individual district, anything that's not specifically listed as a conditional use or a permitted use can be asked for in any district. It can be requested in any district. The bylaws have made specific provisions for this kind of like extraction. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's like being reviewed as, say, like a retail or commercial or anything like that. But the review criteria is under section 10.7. So it's very similar to how you would review a conditional use. It's just a different use because you're taking from the earth.
Okay.
It has its own review criteria in the same way that a conditional use would. It's just not listed in a use in any district.
Okay, so.
That's why they're allowed to ask
So you're
for
reviewing
it.
it as it's supposed to be, a conditional use, then where's the, how many people you can have on the site? What's the limitations?
So it's reviewed under section 10.7, which doesn't have that kind of criteria. None of our conditional uses
You don't think
have-
it should?
That I can't answer that.
Why can't you answer that?
Well, because we can only review what specifically is in our bylaws. We can't, I guess I'm not able to speak on what I believe it should be reviewed under.
To me, if it's a commercial business,
At present, our bylaws state that we will review this under the mining criteria. We follow our bylaws. That's all we can do is go by what is written in our.
so it says you can't put condition on this, right?
Huh?
You can't put conditions on it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you got 12 people there. They haven't said what they're gonna use for septic. They haven't said what they're gonna use for, where these people are gonna be when they're not working up there. I mean, it just don't make any sense. Right?
You guys anticipate 6 employees there, I believe was the number?
Yep, that was what we're anticipating. Obviously, there'll be days where a blaster's on site, we're gonna have 12 people or 8 people or whatever it is. But as far as septic, I mean, we're gonna have portalets, that's how we operate.
Is that allowed?
It is allowed under.
You're only allowed so many days with a portalet. You're gonna have running water for your employees? I mean, all this don't make any sense. You got no infrastructure up there at all. What are they supposed to do? Go to the gas station?
They don't portalet. They don't need to go to the gas station.
Well, if you want to wash your hands, I would hope. What are you gonna do in the wintertime? I mean, they just don't have anything.
They don't have an answer for it, or we don't have an answer for it.
But I think you should get one before you approve this thing.
Yes, sir.
We will confirm to the environmental protection rules and get a wastewater water supply permit if required.
So, based on that, you would drill a well there, or spring, or?
I mean, it's my belief that, like our other quarry, we operate with portlets. In the event, like this gentleman said, once we apply to Act 250 and it gets reviewed by the wastewater division of the agency, they require an on-site septic disposal system and a water supply. We will adhere to that condition if we want to operate this facility.
Okay. Satisfied?
No.
You hear what he said?
Yes, I heard what he said, but I still don't agree with him. And then it shouldn't be up to us to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to.
Well, any permit that they're required to get, we will have copies here. Everything has to go to AJ.
Now, my other question is, how can you guys justify all this heavy equipment, the trucks? It's an actual commercial business, you guys can call it earth removal or whatever you want to call it. But it's a commercial business and going to be running the trucks up and down the road constantly. I just can't see how it meets the character of the area.
No, that's right.
It just doesn't. I mean, you guys should do better.
No one has said it does. They've just
Just
presented,
on that alone, it should pass.
they've just presented their application at this time. No one has done anything, nothing has been decided.
But that alone, you guys should really think about.
Okay.
I would like to live next to a gravel pit. Think about it. I didn't buy down there where there was a gravel pit, and I don't want one now.
Okay. How about, is it Welch? How about hearing from you? Yeah?
Are we allowed to use the microphone?
Feel necessary, yes.
Sit down in chairs in the chair. Isn't that the way it should, are we allowed to sit down and use the microphone?
Is it our turn?
If you want to pull it over, or we can put a chair in front of it.
I'm not, that microphone attaches to, it, so I don't think that's gonna look at.
Yeah, just,
You're welcome, do you wanna use my microphone?
sure.
All right, everybody hearing? So we live at 1720 Kellogg Road. We are directly across the access road that they're proposing. It's 60 feet from where my kids
Can't
live.
hear you. We can't hear what we hear.
Does this microphone work? Pick it up.
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are 1720 Kellogg Road. We are directly across from the access road at 60 feet where our kids sleep at night. My wife Maura and I, this is directly above our property and the access road is 60 feet more. We are ground zero and our neighbors right across the street are also ground zero. We moved from St. Albans City in 2018 to Kellogg Road. We have spent a considerable amount of time and money improving this property. We love it here. It's a nice, quiet place to raise a family. This line would destroy any sense of peace that we have since we moved there. And it's open. If this line is allowed to be opened, we can never close that box. It will always be there. And like they said, they're making more plans for the future. The proposed 120 or 60 trucks a day, whatever they decide, would create an unbearable noise, fumes, and dust. The drilling and blasting is dangerous. They left that part out. Drilling and blasting is very dangerous. A similar line was proposed in Arizona in Chico Valley in 2023, and there was an injunction put in by the Attorney General of the state stating that it violated state law and called it a public nuisance. And another thing, a lot of concrete companies are moving to recycling instead of stripping aggregate, which is something I think they should consider instead of stripping virgin ground. Another thing they didn't talk about was fly rocks. Fly rocks fly out of blasting zones. A fly rock that was 3 tons in the West Virginia line flew 890 feet. Between 1978 and 1998, 104 fatalities have been reported from blasting. Under the EPA Section 14, prohibits the discharge of rock that may injure a person, property, or interferes with normal course of business or enjoyment of property, or will adversely affect the environment. And July 16, 2022, fly rocks weighing between 25 and 27 pounds landed in Castleton from the Blissville quarry. One resident was mowing his lawn, and a 25-pound rock landed in his fence and next to him. So everybody's in the blast zone, not just the neighbors that are going, and these rocks can fly as far as a kilometer. First, again, we're in the conservation district, and like you guys said, there's uses, there are 21 of them, and industrial is not one of them. And I know they have a right to apply, but it's not part of the conservation zone. We're also on a wildlife corridor. I've contacted several people from the state who wanted to review this. I don't want to go by a review, a environmental review that's, hired by the beneficiary of mine. So we would like to have another review. Also, our bylaws, I'm sure you guys are familiar, ensures that new developments maintains and complements the character of the surrounding neighborhoods and existing improvements through permitted and conditional uses in our development bylaws. This does not meet our bylaws. And the St. Albans town plan says we will regulate natural resource extraction to ensure the fact it does not have an undue adverse effect upon the environment, upon the surrounding homes and neighborhoods. Remember, this is 60 feet from my house. Mining and extraction of earth resources and renewable resources will not cause any hazard to health, property values, water resources, wildlife habitats, or agricultural land. From what I understand, the second this is approved, all of our property values go down by about 30%.
Our taxes just went up 18%.
It also says the removal will not cause any traffic hazards, excessive congestion, or physical damage to town state roads. These are the town bylaws. I also mentioned my wife works from home, so she'll listen to this all day long. Also, recently the state passed the environmental justice law, which was put into effect last year. And parts of that are talking about environmental burdens. That means any significant impact to clean air, water, or land, including any destruction, damage, or impairment of natural resources resulting from intentional or reasonably foreseeable causes. This includes air and water pollution, toxic substances, excessive noise, activities that limit access to green spaces. I know they said they do quiet blasting, but I'm not buying it. It's also, we're worried about the reduction of our groundwater levels. I don't know how this affects our water table or we have a natural spring that feeds our neighbors across the street as well.
Yes. Just like what happened in Little Street.
Yeah. And the other thing you mentioned, gentleman here mentioned the forestation. This is from Vermont House 687, which just passed last week. Habitat connector means land or water or both that links patches of habitat within a landscape, allowing movement, migration, and dispersal of wildlife and plants, and a functioning ecological process. I believe your environmental assessment, but I want to have my own opinion because we have wetlands on our property, we have the spring, and it's definitely a wildlife corridor. And also, a forest block means a continuous area of forest at any stage of succession currently developed for non-forest use. I know you said there's no forest up there, but that whole ridge is sugar bush. That's forest. Sorry, I'm trying to keep it short. I just went down a ton of stuff in the last 24 hours. So the Land Use Review Board will be working in collaboration with the Agency of Natural Resources. These rules discourage the fragmentation of forest blocks and habitat connectors by encouraging clusters of development. This means more about houses, but this doesn't also, like this gentleman said, doesn't fit the area. Fragmentation generally means dividing land into naturally occurring vegetation and ecological processes that remove vegetation and create physical barriers to eliminate species movement and interrupt ecological processes between previously connected natural vegetation. And finally, the environmental justice law protects communities from disproportionate environmental burdens such as polluted air, water, climate change impacts, and limited access to green spaces. In conclusion, I hope the board sees that this disastrous project as a detriment to our town, and I hope you vote to squash it tonight. And this will discourage any new housing on the area. It will kill the property values we have. We're in a housing crisis in this state. There's no houses available, and this just makes it worse. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you. They don't own the property yet.
I didn't think so.
The property is owned by other people. There's no permits in place, like the board said, so just remember, they were talking a good game like this is a done deal, it is not. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Do you want any response to that, or do you want to keep going? That's okay.
Dan? I guess I'll call on Diane Monson.
Hi. I wasn't going to do this, and I tried to keep it not personal, but I'm just going to read my notes.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Thank you. My land borders the quarry site on the whole south side. On the top of the hill, and you've driven by, it's a hill. On the top of the hill is what I call my little piece of heaven. You go up there and you hear absolutely nothing. Peace and quiet, except for the birds and the other wildlife. I see turkey, deer, bobcats. So I have to disagree with it not being a corridor, animal corridor. This piece would be destroyed completely with the blasting and the crushing. On the top of the hill, I also have a well and a pond. At the bottom by the site, I have a spring that feeds the farmhouse across the road. I have another well, and my home is located on the bottom part also. What happens to the groundwater, or I guess my concern is the groundwater, what happens to the wells, the springs, and the ponds? Most importantly is that allowing this quarry to come in will negatively affect the quality of life for the entire neighborhood. How many of us will be able to go out and enjoy a barbecue or just sit on our porch with family while hearing 60, 80 dump trucks, whatever it is, jake brakes and dump trucks going by constantly? Of extreme importance to me is the safety issue. There are a lot of runners, one of which I have a granddaughter who runs all the time. I have bikers. We have e-bikes that go by. We have neighbors that walk on a daily basis, neighbors that walk their pets. We have elderly neighbors that walk on the Kellogg Road. I have 23 grandkids in all of which have learned to appreciate the peacefulness in that area. But I also have found out that we have Green Mountain Transit buses that have daily routes back and forth on the Kellogg Road at least 4 times a day. I've seen them. And that's on top of normal school buses. My grandchildren have talked about doing a roadside farm stand. How safe would that be with 120 pickup trucks driving by? Tandem trucks. Another young family on the road lives directly across from the driveway. And they have young children that I call little entrepreneurs who like to sell baked goods and Kool-Aid at the end of their driveway. How safe will they be without that amount of traffic? There's a hill on the road between Joe Peon's and Kevin Welch's house. This hill, as you go up it, it narrows. You can't see who's on the other side. There's a rock ledge on one side of the road. Meeting up with another car is difficult enough. I can't imagine these dump trucks meeting up with the school buses or the Green Mountain buses or anyone else. Bikers, joggers, anyone. So, as far as I'm concerned, safety should be our #1 concern here from everyone. The only other thing I'd like to say is that I would like to ask each and every one of you on the board to take the time to drive down the Kellogg Road and back at least 3 times at different times of the day before you make your decision on this board. Because to me, it is just not the place. It's very concerning.
Can I go? Well, I mentioned one thing. I was brought up on that road. We were little, we played it in hills. And I'm sure enough other people are going to talk about the traffic, but that's going to change that road forever. It's already changed, but we can live with that. But between the farm trucks, and the dump trucks, and I know I hate to say it, but you went from 120, everything you've been cutting in half today. You keep going down, so there's something fishy there. But anyway, there's caves up there, and I really do beg to differ with you. And I like this guy. I even gave him a ride up, and I told him I might be his enemy sometime. I was nice, and I give him a ride up, and I like the pull-outs, people should be able to do something with their land. But when it ruins the whole neighborhood, I mean, to bring yourself up by bringing everybody else down. You know, I mean, it's just such a beautiful place up there, and there is wildlife, and it is a corridor. It's the only corridor we have west of St. Albans City. It goes from Milton, Burlington, all the way through. I mean, there's bobcats, like Diane said. It's really a bad fit. It's a bad place, and it's going to ruin a lot of things. And I hope you guys deny it. I'm sorry, but thank you.
Lisa Morgan? Is she here? No Lisa Morgan?
I'm her husband, Nathan.
Oh, okay. Not bad,
Did you say your name was Nathan?
Nathan. Liberty. I can't really say much more that hasn't been said already. We do have young children, 4 young kids that play outside a lot. We do have water rights, as was mentioned earlier. That's a concern. The value of our homes, depreciating is a big concern. I think that's probably one of the bigger concerns. And just overall, as has been said, it doesn't feel like it's supposed to be there. It just feels wrong. And yeah, that's pretty much all we have to say on that for now. Again, I don't want to repeat what's been said already.
No, I appreciate that.
So that's about it. Thanks.
Bittersweet.
Thank you.
So, Dave Reynolds, my wife Jen, we run the farm that is directly across from the road. We travel both ends of Kellogg, trying to do our everyday operation and keeping the farm going as far as putting in feed and keeping the everyday operation. Traveling on the road now is already a challenge. We're in and out every day. It's hard enough as it is to add more trucks and noise, and it's really going to put a hinder on our operation. We've worked really hard over the years of keeping the farm quiet, docile, we're organic, so we're trying to preserve the land and keep things to a natural looking state, and then to try to throw something across that, trying to make it a pretty picture isn't gonna happen. Like, we do have kids that, you know, they kind of go to and from the farm, and that's not gonna happen anymore. It won't be the one-way thing with the trucks. I mean, that's not gonna happen either. We are aware of our neighbors that walk and the kids that are, you know, down doing their thing, and we're aware of our neighbors. They're all our neighbors, so we know what's going on. We're always being cautious of our neighbors and trying to respect our neighbors, because they're our neighbors. Guys from down somewhere else, it's not going to be their neighbor. So our overall, you know, what we're trying to do, and maybe future plans for us, kids, whatever, will be basically taken away if something like this goes on, because Kellogg Road will no longer be Kellogg Road. So I totally am against it. And put it in perspective, like, we do put in feed, we do drive trucks and equipment to and from, but our total operation from doing that is probably maybe a total of 45 days out of the year for putting in feed. We're probably taking in about 280 loads a year to put in our crops, to do the traveling and time, and we're done from, you know, 4 days here, 4 days there, and that's it. Back to quiet, back to normal, and the non-stop trucking and blasting. And I'm also curious to know, is there a test on what blasting and the grinding is going to do for livestock? I mean, they sense things differently. Are they going to drop in milk? Are they going to shit themselves out? Are they going to have problems? Like, what is that gonna do to my 280 head that's right across the road? We pasture right there on the border. Animals are outside, fence. I mean, we have enough issues as it is, trying to keep things, keep up to what we're supposed to do to keep things good. And this is just gonna be an added stress to what's already a stressful everyday thing going on. So.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, when you're organic, like, you can't, the crops, you can't put stuff on the crops that you could, when you're conventional. So what's that gonna do? Reading that paper was all about, what it can do to plants, and that's our livelihood. This is what we do. I can't do anything else. We can spread shit, that's just about it. And we basically do what we can to keep everybody happy around there. We don't want runoff, we try to do all that stuff. And if you're not a big farm, what else can you do? If this is gonna have an effect on our crops, because that's our livelihood. In the corridor, that's bullshit. There's animals everywhere. Everywhere. You can ask any one of us who have grown up here. Everyone. And then the safety of the kids. There's kids all over. And I know not everybody has as many kids as I do, but they're on the roads all the time trying to help us out. Farm help's not easy to find. They like to be part of it, and that's gonna change the road. That's gonna make us, that's a big change. And I'm not gonna feel comfortable. It's bad enough when Walmart went in and all that. It's a crossover road now. But how about things like Bay Day, when people go down to the Bay Park, and that's just gonna be that happens every day.
The great race.
And people are biking it, walking it. I just can't see it being the same. It's gonna have a negative effect for sure.
I just thought one more. I was curious. There was a fence, on the Kellogg side. What's stopping anybody from going to the back to be curious of what the horns are, or what the noise is? I know it's going to be a gigantic hole at some point in time, but what's preventing them from coming on the back side? It's an area that you can cut from the tracks, you can cut from the houses from above, and right, exactly. There's kids everywhere, curious kids.
Yeah, growing up, that's all we did. We were always up in there.
Green Mountain Tower all passes through there.
And I agree with you as far as what it's going to do to the farm and the cows. I went organic for a reason. And I like it quiet. I play music for my cows at night. I was going to have, that I want them comfortable, happy. They go to and fro. It's not a big farm. It's different. So, but anyway, I guess that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I really don't know how to approach the rest of this. Do we start in the front and work our way back?
Sure. I just wanted to interject one thing that nobody's brought up.
Okay.
Can you just state your name just for the record?
Kevin Mullen, Dunsmore Road, within the site. Michigan's in the middle of a big lawsuit with an operation like this right now for silicosis. Yep. If no one knows what silicosis is, it's new asbestos. This is dust, it's going to fly, and it will spread. It catches the air, and it goes in the air. Look it up. Take a look at it. If you want that, those kids across the street, you wouldn't have that in front of you. This is not going to be a good situation, and it does not fit. It can be decided real easily. Put it on the ballot.
Okay, thank you. Paul Morrow, what is it that you need to say?
I've only got one quick question. We're talking about 1 million yards total over 15 years. I was born with a little calculator in my head. Unfortunately, it's not the only thing that works these days. If you take your 1 million yards, 15 yards per load, you have about 67,000 trucks total. Divide that by 15 years, you end up with about 4,500 loads a year. 5 days a week, you got 260 days. I'm only ending up with 18 loads a day. The numbers don't add up.
Well, it's not a, you can take it, this is not a 60 load a day, every day type of thing.
No, I'm saying, I'm talking total project, 15 years, 1 million yards.
Well, it's 1 million yards in the ground, not blasted and separated. It's even more than what you're thinking, okay? Correct?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's closer to like 2.25 million or something.
I'd also like to thank the board, our neighbors here in St. Albans Town. Please remember, these folks are volunteering their time. They're not our enemies here. An application was delivered to them. They've allowed room for us, time for us to speak, and I want to thank you for that.
Yes.
Okay, sir?
So the one thing about safety that I want to add on to is, my name's David. Ryan, K-R-Y-A-N. What kind of improvements would need to be done at Lower Newton and Kellogg? Because that is a very troublesome intersection. Anyone that ever comes south trying to cross
There was
over.
an actual accident tonight.
That's what I'm saying. And a lot of people drive that way. I have had at least 3 near misses, and I've only lived up here for 6 years. And you're going to tell me that people come 50 miles an hour down Lower Newton with a slow-ass moving truck trying to drive across the intersection is not going to create more safety issues? If there's going to be anything about that, there needs to be improvements done to that intersection before any of those trucks begin to cross.
Not the cost of that.
That's not even the point. Those trucks shouldn't even be on the road anyway. This should
But I totally agree.
Right.
But I'm saying still, if there's even going to be remotely an iota of chance of this happening, that intersection needs to be fixed.
Heavy truck front crossing.
Okay.
It's a very blind spot trying to come across, and there's a very blind spot coming down Lower Newton.
Okay. Yes. State your name, please, for the...
My name is Julianne Gray. I bought my house close to 40 years ago, and I'm on the corner of Jewett Avenue and Kellogg Extension, and I own about 3 acres there. And I back up to the brook, Stevens Brook, and when I bought, there was hardly a car that went up through that road, and I've seen it get worse and worse and worse, and I'm sure you all know that you come up through Kellogg, and then it's, let's see how fast I can get up the road. And that is where I live, and I raised 5 kids there, and I have 10 grandkids. And it's a safety issue as it is. And you guys are talking about all the noise from the, what they're gonna be causing. Well, you know what, just one dump truck, which is probably overweight, because I believe they weigh 20 to 30,000 pounds, is more than what our road limit is supposed to be. And we are forgetting that the road is a small residential road where we are supposed to be able to live, be secure, and raise our children and have our grandchildren. And we're supposed to be able to walk up and down that road in our neighborhoods and feel safe. And it has not, we don't have that any longer, and now let's add more. These dump trucks come through, these large trucks come through, and what do you think they do when they come down? They jailbreak. Now, if you think that isn't loud, I can't sit inside my house and have my conversations with anyone because I can't hear the person sitting with me. I can't be in my backyard. I can't be down next to the brook because the noise is so loud. Now let's add 20, 30, 40 trucks a day to what is already going up and down, which should not even be allowed on our road to start with. Again, a small residential road with houses, which is a neighborhood that are allowing these trucks to come through, which shouldn't even be happening now. And you guys want to add this to us. And I built my life here in this area. I didn't buy it like this. I built my life. My blood, sweat, and tears in my family. And now people want to take that away from me. And maybe so I don't want to live there, but yet I can't sell it because that is what you guys are doing to all of us. This board here, this board, you're there because you want to make St. Albans better for us. I can tell you right now, if you allow this, you're going to take it away from us. You're going to take it away from all of us, and we won't be able to sell our homes. Nobody will want them. And I'm going to retire right now, retiring, so we can enjoy our lives, and now this is happening to us. So all of our life, as I bought my house when I was 20 years old, and now it's all being taken away, possibly with a decision. Please don't do that to us. It's hard enough to walk up and down our streets now, and there's a lot of people that enjoy doing that, and it's dangerous enough now.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to hear from some more, but I've got to say is we need to limit the amount of time you're speaking, and we definitely do not need to hear it over and over again. So, who, sir, you had your hand up first, what is it you need to say?
My name is Brian Sussman. I live on the other side of the brook. The question that I have is on the agreement that Ireland has proposed to the town. What is in that agreement now when we go from 100 million pounds? I mean, they've been changing numbers and refiguring all through the meeting. It's the first meeting and they've already made changes. Maybe it's a junior PE that's doing this. I don't know. Maybe they're getting direction from you. What is the agreement now say to the town? What's the benefit to the town that they're proposing?
There is no agreement at this time with the town. This is just a draft proposal from them.
There's no agreement.
That would be up to the town manager and the select board at some point, should this go on, to come up with an agreement that everybody would agree with. Yes.
Sally Lawyer. I bought in 1992 over at Rockland Estates. I was a city girl and I moved to the town. I love the smell of manure, enjoy the farm. And I bought for the same reasons, that I just wanted to be out of the city. One fact I want to point out is that there was a fatal accident on that curve that you mentioned a few years back. A young speeder thought he'd take that curve and went airborne and went through the trees and was killed. It's another safety issue as bad as the four-way intersection. And then my other question would be, I heard a comment of at the end of the quarry in 15 years, there would be some money for the town. I heard it kind of just put in there, but I did not. I don't know what that is, why they're saying that, or what is there that's in it for the town.
I don't believe that was anything other than the...
I just want to clarify, we did not make a statement. If it came across that way, we did not make a statement like that, that's all.
So there is no money in it?
There is money that we're talking about with the roadway agreement, and we said that if there were any changes beyond the quarry as far as filling, there would be another agreement that we would go into to address that at that time.
So there's no benefit to the town for that?
You did say
The roadway
that
agreement is the
30%
benefit.
of something was going to be given to the town.
Yeah, it was, I put it in my notes and so you said it.
30% of whatever was coming out of there, money-wise, was going to go to the town.
It was said.
I don't know where you heard that, because I didn't hear that.
I heard it. Lie your money, that's all I
Mr.
hear
Smith
here.
said it and I put it in immediately because I'm like, wow, money for the town. That's all I have to say, but thank you, and I just appreciate the beauty of St. Albans Town, and I hope the board appreciates that also.
I believe what Nick may have referenced in regards to money back to the town was in the roadway agreement. If I'm amiss and he did say something different, I would like to retract that from the record, especially if he said it was 30% of something coming out of the project. But we have this on tape, so if necessary, we retract it from the record.
Kim, did you take anything on your record of that effect?
I had not.
The only thing I heard about percentage was when you talked about that you couldn't come up with a percentage of what amount would stay in the town as far as product.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I heard, the percentage.
Yeah, as far as
And
I
that's
go,
what will reflect in our record.
Thank you.
Yes. Could you come up?
Okay.
Could you come up?
My name is Karen Mulkey, and I live on Brigham, and I'll be here a year in July. We specifically just moved here from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we specifically came to St. Albans town because of the quietness and the loveliness of it. And I'm one of those that goes down Kellogg Road almost every other day, cycling, walking, running. And if I honestly had known this was going to happen, there is no way we would have bought our house. But this is such a lovely town, and I just hope that you as a board will keep it that way. That's all I'm saying.
Okay? Okay. All right, just one thing I forgot to do it. You made me too nervous. Okay? No, you don't have to move. It's going to be real quick. You know, I assume you go by the bylaws, but you must also go by the town plan, right? I mean, that's what makes up the bylaws. Yeah. If you read the bylaws and you read the town plan and you come away where you can put a quarry in that rock, in that corridor, on Kellogg Road, scenic road, habitat block, you have it yourself, and I'm sure these guys must have read it, because I don't know how they even dared to ask. I mean, it's right there. Got all the pages down if you want them. I'm sure you guys know where they are too, but I just wanted to get that into the record. Thank you.
Yeah, we have people on Zoom, so it's just easier if you guys use the microphone for them.
Good evening, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Mary Pickner, and I don't live in this zone, but I do work in public health. And one of the things that I want to talk about today, I can't look and read at the same time, so I'll read first, is, and I appreciate your science and your report, and you coming here to explain that. And I also know that there has been a lot of research done around quarry dust.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Yeah. I can. I just am coached by, I don't like to yell, it's a decibel thing, but, I've been a teacher, I can make a point. So quarry dust, globally, there's no way to eliminate it. My one question to you is, when you say you are wetting the quarry dust, wetting the whatever the stuff is, what are you wetting it with other than water? When I think about that, there are some profound and irreversible effects that we have in our community. Quarry dust does cause a lot of respiratory distress and upset, whether it's in your eyes or nose. It has been quarry dust settles in your lungs. I know they talk about silicosis, that has to do with silicates, and I'm not really sure Marble has that, but either way, when you put irritants in your lung over a long period of time, and that means not decades, but just years, that there are profound and irreversible effects to that. Quarry dust, also settles on plants, and it decreases the plant's ability to have photosynthesis, which is, to grow and thrive. Ecosystems that have been exposed to quarry dust, there's been research done that the number of variety of plants is reduced by quarry dust. Persistent blasting can cause cracks in the rock and develop and alter water flow, but we won't know that until that happens. When I think about organic living and organic things, is when we add quarry dust, there are contaminants that don't qualify, that would be qualified as contaminants for any kind of organic growing. And I like my vegetables and my milk, pretty tasty and all natural. Things like conditional use. We have a conditional use, but it's with a profoundly permanent change in a very deep hole. This was listed as a rural and conservation piece of property. What other things do I have? Added stress to our animals. Our animals do things a whole lot better than we do, and definitely better than I do. I also want to point out when you said there's 1 million cubic yards, because I can't even imagine how much that is, so I had to figure it out, right? So The New York Public Library was, that marble was quarried out of the Dorset Quarry, along with quite a few other buildings. So, but that was, pretty big. But one New York Public Library was 530,000 cubic feet of marble. And the 1 million cubic yards of marble will make just shy, like a quarter shy, of 59 New York public libraries. And anyone who has ever been there, it's the library with the lions in the front, that building is an entire city block. And so when I think about that and the space that is being taken out of this community, it's a lot. And that's a lot of quarry dust, that's a lot of trucking, that's a lot of other contaminants that are not here currently, in a place that has been cared for respectfully for decades, in generations. And people in our community want a place to be able to live and play and grow old. We are in the aging state, and yet we still like to exercise, but exercising and dodging trucks is not it. And one other little side note is, I travel across the state, and I was traveling down I-89 towards Burlington one day, and between Georgia and the Island exit, there is that quarry, and I know you're never going to have the kind of dust cloud that came across one day, and I had an almost near fatal accident with me and my children in the car because that cloud created a whiteout, and the tractor trailer that was directly ahead of me had slammed on the brakes because they knew they couldn't get through it, and we missed dying by maybe 20 feet. And I think about that as trucks will fly through, and when you're carrying a very heavy load, you just don't stop as quickly as you may need to dodge a 6-year-old. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for coming.
Just to add on, like, the whole.
State your name, please.
Colby Langlois.
I said, can you, I'm having a hard time.
It's Colby Langlois. Just to talk about the health, like she talked about it a little bit. I have 2 young children, and we're gonna live about a little over half a mile from where this is gonna be. And if you just do a quick search, there is a pile of research that proves that quarry dust causes all kinds of disease. Lung issues, cancer, they've linked it to cardiovascular issues. So I know we talked about the roads. Quite frankly, I don't care about the road. Roads can be repaired. So he can offer all the money he wants. But one thing you can't repair or replace is health. So if my kids 15 years from now get asthma or some kind of lung condition, so SD Ireland could make another, I don't know, 500 million, or you know the number. I'm sure it's way beyond that. Whatever it is, that doesn't matter to me, okay? It's my kids' health. And everyone in here that has children and grandchildren understand
Investments, we have investments.
that. So, the fair question for the board to think about would be, if this was in your backyard and you had children and grandchildren, would you want to expose them to this? I see you guys have wedding bands, so I'm assuming you might have kids. Do you have a kid? Yeah. So would you want this right in your backyard? If you're being honest, I know you're just doing your job and I understand that. I have nothing against you personally, but if you were being honest, would you want your children to be right next to this? It is a fair question. It is a fair question. And I know that today, technology's improved. They have ways to control the dust, make it better, this, that, the other thing. But it still doesn't stop it. And don't ask these guys about the dust, because that would be like asking McDonald's if their food is healthy. Do independent research. No, seriously. With a decision this big, look outside the box. Don't listen to them. There's plenty of information out there. You just have to go look for it. So with the health, with the dust, look into that. Because that is what scares me. like I said, the road can be fixed, that doesn't matter. It's a road. If you've ever been sick or you've had somebody in your family sick, money can't fix that. Your health is extremely important. So that is my biggest concern as a dad.
Thank you. The information that I read, I'm sharing with you, it is also cited.
Oh, yeah.
Can I speak, right?
You can just give him a second.
I probably don't need the mic. My name's Harold Cross. I think most of you know me. I've served this community for probably 48 years now on public safety, on the fire department. And Diane touched on it. The safety of the people that walk up and down Kellogg Road is probably the most essential part of this whole thing. I'm here to tell you that anybody that drives on Kellogg Road, which I do probably 4 times a day, and anybody who drives on the Newton Road, I mind that, it's more of a public safety, and everybody should have party status when it comes to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, ask a question.
Okay, my name is Kirsten Belrose. I wanted to, you were talking about decibels and things earlier. My husband grew up in the village of Swanton, you know the limestone quarries there. What is the decibel level of rock crushers and things like that? When I talked with him about this, and I teach in Swanton, so I feel the blast when they do that in the school, but he said that one of the really hard things about that was the constant, everyday, all the noise of the crusher and drilling. And so I was just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit, because it's very difficult to enjoy all of the things we've talked about. You have to close your window, or you just can't go inside because you just can't get away from it. And he had said no matter where they moved it, you could always hear it, and it just didn't stop. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so let me pull this back over here. I don't usually have trouble projecting my voice. I don't know what it is about this room or something. So as far as the crusher running goes, we average running the crusher maybe 6 to 8 hours a day if it's functioning correctly. Right next to the crusher, our dosimeter picks up about 95 decibels, which is ear damaging, but that's right next to the crusher. Honestly, I can't speak to an annoyance level as far as that goes. Where our crusher currently is located, I don't think there's a lot of that. There are some neighboring businesses. It remains to be seen what impact that would have locally here in this location. If it is anything like where it is currently in our South Brownell quarry, once you get outside of the actual quarrying area, you can barely hear it at all. Part of that's depth. There's basically a bowl that it sits down in, and that's the goal here as well.
That was a pre-existing quarry when you started it, correct?
So when we started it, it was very, very small. Actually, it had to be pumped out when S.T. Griswold bought it. But I could comment on that. I'm not going to. I'm not trying to be a comedy act here tonight. But it's much larger now than it was then. And where the crusher sits, again, you can hardly hear anything when you get outside of those limits. And it would maybe take a little while to get to that point here. I don't know. I'm not as familiar with the landscape of this as I would be in the future from now if this was to go through.
Yeah, and we would just also point to the fact that we're stating for the record that the intention is to be at 60 decibels an hour at the property line, which is a conversation level. And then obviously every distance you move past that will, that'll drop off. But so it is a fact that it will run 6 hours a day, and it will be at that level or less at the property line.
Ben Perez, and on 1305 Reagan Road. So you said you don't have the room?
Can you say that again?
A little bit slower. 1305 Reagan Road?
My hand's getting
And no worries. All right, so you said you don't have room for the wash rack, right? At the site currently on your plan, and that wash site is supposed to bring down the dust, correct?
No.
The wash site is actually, it's gonna help crush the stone to the appropriate aggregate size that would be better for us, which would be like, it would remove fines that are below the, I don't wanna get way into it, but like really small particulates, we're gonna remove it, so we could use that as sand within our concrete aggregate mix as well. So.
And then, so basically back in, I think it was like 2007, over in Jericho. So I was in the Army for a while, right? We used to do artillery missions out there, and we shot just a little bit outside the box one year. And when that happened, we caused the farmers' milk to all go sour that entire period. And that, I mean, we're not that close to them either. We're talking about a mile away. All those cows went sour milk, like that whole period. So it's not like it's unheard of. The Army and the National Guard had to pay out for that actual incident to that farmer for that period of time. So it's not like it hasn't happened. And then also, I have one lung because I got shot. So now, if this happens, I'm gonna be living every day breathing that shit in with one lung, which I already had, silicose problems from being overseas for 7 years. And now I'm gonna breathe this shit in for another, 15 years? I mean, it's gonna be a long damn time.
Okay, very good. Anybody else? Yeah. Steve?
Hi. Sit down, that'd be great. Absolutely. Hello, my name is Steve Kuhn. I've lived on this ridge for my entire life. We are blessed here in Vermont to have very unique geography. This eastern fault line that runs from Canada all the way down the western side of the lake is what we were talking about. It's a western facing cliff. It's absolutely beautiful. As a kid over at Hathaway Point, look back across and you can see down on Georgia Shore, it's all a connected ridge, which brings me to the point of some of the things that were brought up. Is it a block or is it a corridor? It's a corridor, okay? The animals out there don't have any idea of what we want to call it. They wander up and down, all sorts of animal. I've had moose, I've had bobcat, I've had deer, and wild dogs, foxes, you name it. It's a wonderful, wonderful place, but it's a unique, area because what happens on that ridge, you're talking about decibels, there's like a natural reverberation on that ridge. So if you hear a sound, which oftentimes we'll hear at night where it's very quiet and peaceful, that sound will reverberate down the ridge and back. It's very unique. So any sound of a crusher going over on Kellogg Road, that's certainly within close enough to where we live, which is over on Georgia Shore Road, and it's just a direct shot over. So that sound reverberation is amazing. And the thing that kind of really perked up my ears is when they said they're going to have a horn blowing, every once in a while. Like I really want to hear a horn in the distance blasting, an air horn going off. It's just it's totally amazing that it's even being considered. I haven't heard any positive reason of how this is going to improve the quality of life of anybody in St. Albans town. I drive on Kellogg Road. I drive on Kellogg Road a minimum of once a day, and usually 2 or 3 times a day. It's a beautiful road, but it's a narrow road. In the town of St. Albans, we've been very conservative over the years, and we've set up a paving plan so that about every 6 years, the roads are all repaved and maintained. We have a beautiful road system. We're talking about putting tractor trailer trucks and large dump trucks fully loaded with rock, that's just going to completely ruin the roads. Okay, Kellogg Road right now is a very nice road. It will deteriorate the quality in a hurry. And all you have to do is look where they let the heavier trucks run, like on what I call the long road from Main Street up to the Wagon Wheel. Take a look at the ruts that are in the road there, and what the cost is of being able to maintain that. Air quality. The dust will blow in the air. We're going to be breathing it. If you go down to Barry, to the mines down there, or to the quarries down there, there's a thin film of stone on everything. And a lot of that is going right into your lungs. It is a huge health problem. Water drainage. In the land, the ridge that I'm on, the water, we had a development of over at Willette Drive. That totally changed where the water flowed. There were more impervious surfaces in one area, less in another area. There were retention ponds that were put in. All that I can tell you is that it adversely affected our property by having that development go in there. And that was just a handful of houses. This is a much bigger project that they're talking about. And I wonder when their ponds overflow due to large rain events that we should be planning for with climate change, when we see that happening, where is that runoff going to go? We don't know. We're not going to be there. They get their foot in the door, and who's going to be monitoring what's really happening there? Stripping, well, this is after they strip all the vegetation off it to get to the rock. Let's see here. Wells. A lot of people have wells. When you start blasting, we don't know on a fault line like that what it's going to lead to. I lost production out of one of my wells years ago because of an earthquake that happened over in New York State. It just, my flow slowed down. We don't know what the impact is of blasting in a fragile environment like that ridge. Light pollution. They're talking about putting up lights. Well, we may put them up, we may not put them up, we don't know what we're going to do. Well, the last thing that I want to see when I'm out looking at the sky at night is their light. Their light pollution is what it's called. Safety. You know, driving on Kellogg Road is dangerous, especially at that point that other people have talked about, where the road narrows and it goes up, you can't see the other side of it. That is a major problem. If you meet a truck there, farm equipment meets a truck in that particular area, it's a catastrophe. And at the bottom, where Lower Weldon, or Lower Newton hooks into Kellogg, thank you. That's an unbelievably dangerous intersection, and we're just asking for a problem to happen. There we go. I think I've covered all my points. And there's certainly more I'm trying to be through in a quick manner, but like Mitch said, if we look at our town plan and we look at what's in the interest of our community, we want to improve the quality of life of all of the citizens within our community, and that means we need to stand up and speak up when these things that don't benefit us, but benefit out-of-town investors. We need to look at the decisions we're making and what's truly in our best interest of us and our children and grandchildren.
Yes.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to ask, you probably won't be making your decision tonight, will you? You don't know?
We have no idea.
I kind of doubt it. Probably you'll continue it. Continue the discussion.
Possibility, yes. That's what you wanted to know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
There's no way right now we, as the people who live here, don't lose in this entire situation. Whether it's financial, health, environmental, travel, safety, there has not been a single positive benefit that I have heard come out of any of their mouths as how we are gonna be benefiting from this in any way. We lose.
We don't even gain jobs here.
Yeah, we gain nothing. Franklin County is one of the fastest growing areas of Vermont right now because it's one of the cheaper areas. We had 5 houses go in, like what, right down that way a little bit. There's been a few more neighborhoods going up on Lower Newton. Somebody mentioned earlier, what's that going to do for more development, housing shortages, things like that? Like that to me would be more beneficial to us than putting in a quarry. Regardless of an agreement or not, you know, we're gonna lose. The town's gonna gain something. SD Ireland's gonna gain something. The current property owners are gonna gain something. But we just get screwed every which way.
That's normal. That's
So basically, you don't want it. Nobody wants it.
Well, what effect could it have on the lake? Let's talk about that.
Brian?
I want to remind everyone, I've sat on the school board and built the school, and there are a lot of heated moments that come in meetings. This is the citizen board, and you have to give them their ability to take the information in, listen to our comments, deliberate on what's going on, because they're in the benefit business for us. Okay, and that's what their time is, and that's what they will do. Okay, so we have to remember that they are neighbors. They're listening. They're trying to do the things that are beneficial to the town. And I think everyone's made some really good statements. Everyone's done a lot of diligent work in a short order without notification. But you've got people that are up here that are going to have to look at this thing, take their time and go through it, and give them the benefit of the doubt of going through it and doing it right way. And I give them the plot. I've been on the other side of the seat where we didn't do things always the way people thought we should, but we did our best. And I think that's what will happen.
Thank you, Brian. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Just a few kind of closing things. The reason we're here tonight and the reason that we made this proposal is because people need aggregates, right? People, and the things that aggregates are made out of, like concrete and asphalt, stone for driveways, etc. So, and the reason we're here is because this rock is very good rock. In a perfect world, there wouldn't be anybody living within 5 miles of here. But we've been looking for over a decade for a place to put a quarry, and it's almost an impossible find. So as you guys deliberate your decision, I just hope you take that side of the coin in, is that there's less and less quarries being permitted, and we're running out of aggregate. Southern Vermont, many municipalities in southern Vermont are actually buying what we call man sand for road sand. Ironically, man sand is man-made sand that you make out of aggregates. My point being is we are running out of that supply, and the demand to feed all of our uses is increasing. We just happen to be the ones who use it to manufacture what people need. So moving forward, we are amenable to reducing the amount of truck trips. You've heard that. That was an educated decision that we made earlier today because we read social media. We had no idea there was going to be 120 people here this evening when we made the application. So we adjusted, we made that decision earlier today. We are also amenable to, as Nick said, reducing the amount of Saturday hours from 52 days to 52 down to 6 or so, so we can open up on those Saturdays and we need to catch up. We're amenable to permit conditions that say we can't commence construction or any of this until every appropriate permit that is required by the municipality, the state of Vermont, and the federal government are obtained. We're amenable to more screening, more fencing, more berms, to enhance safety. The point was made, what if somebody comes in the back? if you guys put a condition in that we need to put a fence around the quarry, we're amenable to that. We are amenable to providing additional information that will help you make your decision, whatever that decision may be, and impose any necessary conditions, specifically as it relates to the proposed conclusions that you came up with, including wildlife habitat, surrounding property values, agricultural land, the intersections. There are people, there are consultants, third-party consultants that can be charged with helping you make those decisions. So as you deliberate this evening, our only ask is if you charge us with doing any of those studies, just please do everyone in the room a favor and just try to narrow down that scope. For example, if you want us to study an intersection, not us, if you want us to hire a third-party professional, engineering outfit or traffic consultant to study an intersection, just tell us which intersections you would like us to study. And if it's the whole road, that's the type of feedback we would be looking for from the board. And other than that, I too would like to thank you. I know that this is a volunteer position, and I just hope that every decision you make isn't as difficult as this one. So, thank you.
Yes.
I just want to go back to this gentleman over here, when you asked the question, you have children, would you want this in your backyard?
Well, you just said something really interesting, right? We don't live in an ideal world, but you did say, in an ideal world, no one would live within 5 miles of the quarry. So you got people that are going to live within 1,000 feet of this. 60 feet, yeah. There you go. So why, you tell us why, because you made the statement, I knew you did. So if in an ideal world no one should live within 5 miles, why? Tell us why they shouldn't.
I live within 1,000 feet of our South Parnell quarry.
It's not ideal.
It's not ideal.
Yeah.
It's not ideal, but that's just the way it is.
What are the reasons why you should live 5 miles away from the quarry?
Why are the reasons
in an ideal world, we would all have 100 acres too. I mean, it's that's what he meant by that comment.
Do you mind if I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, everybody in this room knows why we're here tonight. I don't think that any sort of argumentative conflict between any of us is going to do anybody any good. I think that this decision will be made by the board, and they're going to make it in an educated way with all the information that they've been given from every party, and that is the way that it should go.
Steve, you got anything additional to add that we haven't heard?
Just one point, that we're looking at this from a health, quality of life, and safety perspective in our communities that we live. These guys are looking at it as a business, and so of course they're going to, it's not whether the town is going to make an extra $100,000 or $1 million. That's not the point. The health of the children, the safety and well-being of the people in our community is what we're, and the quality of life is what we're standing for, and that's what's most important to us. We already have enough and have good money in our town. We have low taxes. We're in good financial shape. We're not looking to sell quality of life for money.
Yes.
Hi, James Mahoney. Just have 2 technical questions. It was actually posed earlier. What would the wetting agent that you get? What is the wetting agent that you'd be using for the dust?
Water.
It's just water. Okay. And then the other technical question is, you're going to get a director's charge permit.
It's required.
What body of water would that be going to?
It's probably an unnamed tributary to Stevens Brook. Yeah, it's. Hold on. The direct discharge permit thresholds that will require that the post-condition discharge would be at or equivalent to the pre-condition, like suspended solids that are being
We do that,
discharged.
so now I do weekly testing for pH, turbidity, and total suspended solids. And we have to meet or be better than what's going,
Yeah.
coming out is what's going in.
You have to meet, but you don't get fined if you're above it.
Yes.
That's not true, actually. We absolutely do.
We
Contaminants
have
are
not,
just
but it is in the
sand.
permit that we can be fined if we do.
How much?
I don't have that
Do you
information.
submit a report, or does someone come out from
Every month.
NCR?
We send it to the Agency of Natural Resources.
It's a test.
Report, or do they take water?
We take a test, twice a month. It's a water sample that goes to a lab in Chittenden County. They bring the report back to us. I have to fill out a rather extensive report every month.
I just want to make sure I'm going to take everything here. It's difficult, there's so much chatter.
And that gets sent into the Agency of Natural Resources. So if there's anything that's outside of those parameters, we get contacted and there's steps that have to be taken to correct it.
Is it just sand particulates or dirt particulates, or do they also test for other contaminants that come out of the rock, or
Yep.
in the process?
Yeah, Byron was just talking about briefly, but I might not have heard, but we do pH, we'll do like some, it depends on what the site is discharging, like they may test for iron, they may test for other minerals and things like that too. So it would be based on what the state would require us. At a minimum, we know it's gonna be pH and suspended solids, but there's probably likely gonna be more tacked onto that as well.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Nobody? No?
Thank you very much.
I don't know.
No, I just want to thank you. Thank you very